Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to this week's Data Center Go-to-Marketing Sales and Marketing Go-to-Market Q&A live stream. I'm Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI, the Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute, and we're thrilled to have you with us for today's weekly live stream. This series tackles the most pressing challenges faced by go-to-market, sales, marketing, customer success, CS, product, and channel partnerships professionals in and around the data center industry. So what's on the agenda for this week? We're going to tackle a handful of different issues. We're going to start by looking at data center lead generation, business development, and marketing best practices. Then we'll shift gears and turn our attention to how carrier-neutral data centers can reduce long sales cycles. Now, that's a huge problem in and around co-location and wholesale and edge and modular. How do we get our mind around what's going on with long sales cycles and optimize our sales process and our prospects buying process around best practices? Then we'll turn our attention to how to work through a channel partnership program, and specifically how to set reseller targets for data center enterprise analytics infrastructure. But even if you're not an enterprise analytics infrastructure and you just have a channel partner program, or you're thinking about starting a channel partnership program, that advice could help you as well. Then we'll take a brief break for a message from sponsor. Then we'll look at how to get to the decision maker for data center cooling and air quality. We know in a world where so much of what's going on in the data center industry has to do with AI, artificial intelligence, and the GPU chips, and how hot those chips run. We also know there's sustainability and power grid considerations going on. Cooling and power and sustainability, air quality are all huge concerns. Then we'll look at how to go to market for network services, including carriers, OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, tower companies, and integrators, specifically in around networking and telecommunication services. And then we'll wind down today's data center go-to-market sales and marketing Q&A show with a look at identifying new data center business opportunities for industrial integration. So let's start with our first topic for today. Switch over and pull that up. There we go. Okay, so the first question for today is, what do we need to be thinking about for data center lead generation, business development, and marketing best practices? What's most important when it comes to lead generation, business development, and marketing best practices? Well, there's a couple of things. First, we need to recognize that the way that people research and make purchase decisions in and around the data center industry is so different today than as recently as 5 or 10 years ago. 5 or 10 years ago, it was very common for most prospects to use social media and search engines and do a lot of research before they got to you. So much to the point that about half of their research and decision-making process was over before you got to meet a prospect. Like in the mid to late 2010s, CEB, the Corporate Executive Board, which is now part of Gartner, I think that the number that they came up with working together with Serious Decisions was 56%. So 56% of the buyer's journey was over before you got to meet a prospect. Gartner has more recently put that number at 83%. 83% of researching, decision-making, comparing options, evaluating pricing now happens before you get to meet a prospect. This is the self-propelled driven buying process where we run our whole lives on this, right? The smartphone being the remote control of our lives. So how do we make sure that as sales, marketing, go-to-market professionals in and around the data center industry, we can take an active role in what our prospects and future customers are doing to make their decisions? Well, we need to recognize that early on, they're not looking for our company. They may not even be looking for our solutions category yet. All they know is there's a goal they're trying to figure out. There's a question they're trying to answer. There's a challenge that they're dealing with. There's something that's stressing them out like crazy that's causing them to miss time away from their family and work crazy nights and weekend schedules when that's not normally when they work. And the better job we can do with showing up at the point where they're trying to figure all the stuff out, and instead of showing up as a vendor who's begging them to jump on a call for 10 or 15 minutes so you can pitch your stuff, you need to meet them where they are and show up as an educator, a thought leader, a subject matter expert, a trusted advisor, a teacher. And the better job we can do with shifting the context to the way that modern humans actually research and make data center related purchase decisions, the better job we're going to be with our lead generation, business development, and marketing best practices. When I work one-on-one with go-to-market teams in the data center industry, what I'm encouraging most clients to do is to think about their marketing team needing to go deeper into the buyer's journey than they've ever gone before. And I'm also conversely encouraging their sales teams to come back earlier into the buyer's journey than they ever have before. For small teams, the lines between what was traditionally a sales development rep, an SDR, and an account executive, where one was involved early and one got involved later, are largely melting away very, very rapidly, because it doesn't matter what you call it, but you better get in there early, because otherwise, by default, you're not going to be allowed into the stadium for the football match, the soccer match, the basketball game, the baseball game, till the game is 3/4 of the way over or more, 80-90% of the way over, before you get in, if you don't figure out how to get in as a teacher, a trusted advisor, a subject matter expert, as a consultant. Like the salesperson of the future, the business development person of the future, the marketer of the future, and really what's the present, that's going to be successful, needs to look a lot more like a Big Four consultant than a traditional salesperson. In other words, the interactions that someone has with your company on a pre-sales basis before they get to sales, before they even get to that context, needs to feel so good that it feels like free consulting from a huge enterprise Big Four consultant firm. And when we say Big Four, this is like PwC, EY, KPMG, or Deloitte, these huge enterprise consulting companies that have tremendous brain share, market share, mind share in the industry, or like Gartner or Forrester, IDC, Structure Research. All these companies, 451, they all have a tremendous amount of authority, subject matter expertise. When you get to the point that your sales team, your marketing team are looked at in the same way, it is a beautiful thing. So first and foremost, if we want our lead generation, business development, and marketing campaigns, our best practices to be more effective in the buyer's journey, we need to recognize just how much the world has changed, how much our buyers have changed, and what they're actually expecting from us, as their purchase preferences are so vastly different than they were 5 or 10 years ago. So it's critical that we understand our ideal client profile, or ICP. It's even more important to understand who the key stakeholders are within that ICP, the buyer personas, a semi-fictional representation of an ideal client based on actual research and some select educated speculation. And while parents are always told not to pick a favorite child, you actually do need to pick your favorite, your prioritized buyer persona. That's how you end up with your primary buyer persona, your secondary buyer persona, maybe a tertiary buyer persona. Who is the most important stakeholder that you need to build relationships with as a trusted advisor? How do you decide who that is? It's usually done based on business goals. It's done by how efficient your sales process is. It's done by what kind of success they're going to have with your product as it exists today, as they go through onboarding and customer success, as they get through the various stages of their customer journey post-purchase, from initial value, intended value, extended value. This is the stuff that CS people, account managers, customer success people geek out, but it's incredibly important to think about how you prioritize your efforts. It's unit economics. It's where they're going to have the greatest success, where you're going to get the best case studies, all rolled into one. So you're creating this amazing educational content for the first 83% of the buyer's journey. So by the time they get to the point that they're ready for sales interactions, you are the one that's been doing all of the teaching. You're the one that's been teaching them how to evaluate all the other options in the marketplace. And when you do this the right way, you are nearly guaranteed to be on the short list. And in many cases, you may be the entire short list, because you've effectively neutralized the competition. That's the key to best practices around business development, sales, marketing, and lead generation in the data center in today's marketplace. Next question up: how can carrier neutral data centers reduce long sales cycles? It's a fantastic question. How do we deal with long sales cycles, both with carrier neutral data centers and the data center industry at large, wider segment of the marketplace? First and foremost, we need to understand the journey that our buyers go through. Like, for example, with co-location, it's not uncommon to find clients that are on 3 or 36-month contracts. What does that mean? You show up 2 months into that 36-month contract. They have 34 months to go. They're miserable with their current provider. What are you going to do about it? That's a business model question. But from a purely tactical standpoint, regardless of whether you're a operator like a colo or hyperscale or wholesale provider, or you're a technology company or facilities company, or you work in construction or real estate or sales and marketing in and around the data center industry. Sales cycles are getting longer. Why are they getting longer? Because people are a lot more jaded, they're a lot more cynical, they're a lot more risk averse. Everything is now decision by committee. Everything. It's exceptionally rare that you're actually going to be dealing with one person. Even when you think it's one person, there's a really good chance that there's a spouse involved, or there's silent business partner involved, or there's investors that are involved. It's almost never one person anymore. So once we understand why sales cycles are getting longer, risk aversion, cynicism, skepticism, more people needing to win over, tougher alignment, what can we do to accelerate the sales process? Well, for starters, we need to be really crisp on who it is we're selling to, what they care about, and what they care about at different stages of the buyer's journey. And awareness awareness at the beginning, consideration in the middle, and decision at the end. In the awareness stage for a carrier-neutral data center, there's a goal that somebody is trying to achieve. Interconnection, network connectivity, compute, PUE, whatever it is. There's some goals, sustainability, redundancy, backup in disaster, whatever it is. Understand their goal, their biggest objective that's top of mind on why they would potentially choose your company for carrier neutral data center services, data center space. However, it's really important to recognize that early on, they're not looking for your company. They may not even be looking for co-location. There may be something that's a leading indicator of that. So in order for us to be successful in accelerating the journey and accelerating the sales cycle, the first mindset is we don't need to get better at sales. We need to get better at guiding great prospects through their research and decision-making process, getting in there as early as possible to be seen more like a concierge, to be seen more like a Big Four consultant, a teacher, a subject matter expert. So there's actually a reason for them to want to interact with us, because by default, they don't want to interact with humans. They want to ask questions of Google, of Siri, of Alexa, of ChatGPT, of Copilot. They don't want to talk to humans anymore. So we have to work extra hard to convince them that we're one of the good guys, that we can be trusted. And the way we do that is with thought leadership, is with great educational content that reaches them where they actually are right now, not where you want them to be right at the end of the sales process, but where they actually are, and puts a ton of value into that educational and thought leadership bank account before we try to do something selfish and extract value out of that. So you have to know their journey. You have to know who they are and what they care about. And then it gets into segmentation of figuring out the stages that someone goes through. At a broad level, there's 3 stages, but we also know there's 28 touch points. And the better job you can do at being present in one and several of those touch points between complete stranger and purchase decision, the more likely it is that that prospect becomes a great future customer, becomes a great customer that stays with your company for years or longer and becomes a great referral source with digital word of mouth. But when it comes to sales cycle acceleration, yeah, we segment by who they are. Different people care about completely different things, and they care about completely different things depending on where they are in their journey. Once we understand that, then we can get to work creating a content strategy, effective email marketing, effective social marketing, effective blogging, a great webinar program. If you do nothing else, then some of the most important basics, it's defining the buyer personas and what's top of mind for them, and building an email marketing program and a webinar program that's able to engage with them throughout their entire buyer's journey. That's the quick post-it note version. Know who they are, know what they care about, develop fantastic content, and then use email marketing that allows you to segment based on who they are and where they are, and use that content to invite them to great webinars that provide exceptional value, that help them get through and understand how they can do their job better. So at the end of the day, if you want to be really, really good, if you want to be really, really world-class at reducing long sales cycles, both for carrier neutral data centers and in the broader data center marketplace, get really good about understanding who they are, what they care about, and how you can stay with them throughout the entire journey. Next question. This has to do with channel partner programs. And the question specifically is, how do we set reseller targets for data center enterprise analytics infrastructure? So this particular company sells analytics for IaaS, for infrastructure as a service in and around enterprise data centers and enterprise data center operators. But I think the process we're going to go through is very, very similar, regardless of what segment within the data center you operate, regardless of whether you're a SaaS company, like an IT-related company, a facilities-related company, if you do something related to construction and real estate or sales and marketing, or you're a data center operator. The key thing is when it comes to your data center channel partner program, aside from the obvious thing of needing to be bought in and providing sufficient resources, the most important thing is that we treat our data center channel partners as another buyer persona. We segment them out and we recognize that our channel partners are different than our end user customers. They have different business models. They care about different things. There are different things that are freaking them out. They have different things that get them a promotion. They have different things that can get them the opposite of a promotion. They hang out different places. They talk about different things. They're coming to you for different reasons. So first and foremost, if you want to have a great channel partner program, we recognize that they're different people. It's a different category of person, and we need to develop a different strategy for awareness and consideration and decision when it comes to channel partners. We also have to recognize that they're going to onboard differently. They're going to onboard into your company quite differently. So our onboarding, our partner enablement materials may look more like onboarding someone onto your sales team or onto your business development or marketing team or customer success team. So different person, care about different things. Once we get that underway, we're in a much more realistic position to determine what do we need to do to support those channel partners so they can be successful as an extension of our company. We also need to be incredibly realistic. I have seen a ton of companies approach channel partner programs in the last 5 or 10 years that have a complete breakdown of self-awareness of where they are in the marketplace, basically how good and strong their brand is relative to other incumbents that are out there. Early on in my career, I worked as a content provider for Microsoft's channel partner program, specifically in the small business server platform for the direct access portion of the team that was headquartered out of Redmond, Washington. And at that time, Microsoft had and still continues to have a very, very market leadership kind of position in the IT industry. And 20 years ago, when Microsoft didn't have to work hard to get people to pay attention to what it was doing because it was Microsoft. And IBM and Cisco and Red Hat, none of these companies typically have to work really hard to get potential channel partners to pay attention to them. If you were at the extreme opposite end, if you don't have tens of thousands of employees and you're a relatively small company, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 employees, that's relatively new to this marketplace, the first thing you need to do is to get channel partners to be aware that you exist and educate and build trust. Until you are successful at educating and building trust with channel partners, you're not going to get very far. Why? Because most channel partners have been lied to, betrayed, screwed over, every bad connotation in the book, and they're coming to you incredibly jaded and cynical about why they should trust you. So first and foremost, just as you would with any other channel partner, with any other buyer persona, you need to figure out what is top of mind for that particular kind of integrator, managed service provider, consultancy, whatever it is, what's top of mind for their goals, what they're struggling with, and how we can be seen as a teacher, subject matter expert, trusted advisor, and consultant to the consultants. So it feels more like a big four consulting firm providing free consulting and free training than a traditional sales interaction. You are not going to be successful as a relatively unknown in your marketplace with channel partners if you don't first get those potential channel partners to trust your company. That is absolutely vital. So having a great content strategy, a great sales enablement, partner enablement, because first and foremost, we need to get them to pay attention, let them educate and build trust with those partnerships. They sign on for our channel partner program, and we need to take phenomenally good care of them. So much to the point that their onboarding feels almost as good as if they were a full-time employee of your company joining in a sales, marketing, business development, customer success kind of capacity. So if you want to be really good about setting reseller targets for growing a channel partner program, you have to first invest in the bank account. And in order to invest in the relationship bank account, recognize where they're coming from, what they care about, how you can add value to that before you even ask them to join your partner program, and be realistic that this is a marathon. You're not going to flip the switch and have perfect channel partners a couple weeks or a couple months later that are going to be knocking it out of the park with quotas and targets. It just doesn't work that way. If you want people to be full-time, loyal, 100% devoted to your company, that's called an employee. That's not a channel partner. So need to be realistic and self-aware about all of this. Recognize that you probably are going to have to work a little harder, a lot harder than Amazon or Google or Meta or IBM or Microsoft when it comes to recruiting and enabling your channel partners. So that's a great question. So many of the people that come to me in the data center space are super interested at getting a channel partner program off the ground, but it takes time and resources. Couple more questions that I want to talk about on today's show, but before we do that, just a quick message.
Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales marketing and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that's www.dcsmi.com. Now, back to Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A. Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A.
Okay, so next question that we're going to talk about in today's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show is, how do we get to decision makers for data center cooling and air quality? We're trying to reach decision makers specifically that are interested in this particular aspect, largely wrapped around sustainability, cooling, air quality. And we know cooling and air quality is becoming incredibly important because chips are getting really hot. We think about what's required to run AI and the GPUs, whether it's from NVIDIA or an alternative to NVIDIA. These boxes take a tremendous amount of power. They take a tremendous amount of heat. They create a tremendous amount of heat. We know conventional air cooling, liquid cooling, all this stuff, gel cooling is becoming so much more popular because of these issues. But at the end of the day, we still need to get to the decision maker around cooling and air quality. So first, we need to have a deep understanding of where our company can win. What do the case studies show? Who's going to do best? What kind of company following onboarding and installation and configuration, who's going to be the most successful? Who's going to be screaming from the rooftops how wonderful our company is? Once we understand that, we can work backwards and build a go-to-market strategy to clone our best customers, our existing installed base. So once we know that, we'll want to set about defining our ideal client profile, our ICP. From there, we'll probably build a target account list of companies that are in the right regions with the right size and the right business model to be successful with our cooling and air quality related solutions. So once we understand the ICP, the company, once we have a list of potential companies, probably anywhere from a few dozen to a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, and that we're going to be wanting to engage with, then we build the go-to-market for them. We figure out who the personas are that we want to build a relationship with. And that's going to help get you closer to figuring out which of these personas is the decision maker. And in most cases, you'll probably have one or two additional buyer personas in that kind of context. One is there will probably be lateral buyer personas. Like, for example, let's say for cooling and air quality, you determine that it's a facilities director. More than likely, in that data center, there's also an IT director. So obviously, first and foremost, we'd love to get to the facilities director. But if we can get an introduction to the IT director who spends, a couple of hours a day or at least a couple of hours a week with their counterpart that works in the same facility or facilities, not a bad path in, right? In addition to the facilities director, there's likely multiple people that work on the facilities director's team. And depending on the size of the facility, there could be dozens or hundreds of people that report to that person or that title equivalent. So getting someone that's a direct report to that person or a second order direct report to that person, pretty good introduction. I often tell people in a self-propelled buyer's journey where so much research is happening before you get to meet the decision maker, many times, who's going out and doing the research on cooling and air quality solutions? Someone fairly low down in the organization, from a hierarchical seniority standpoint. Sometimes it's even the intern. You'd be like, engaging with the intern? What are you talking about? Who's going to invest time and resources engaging with the intern? The person that recognizes that the intern is the key to unlocking what's going on in that company. So it doesn't, obviously at some point we need to get mind share among the entire decision committee. The decision maker, like the VP of facilities, director of facilities, chief facilities officer, whatever it is. But it's entirely possible that there's anywhere from a few to a few dozen people that work pretty closely, either directly for someone who is a direct report of the decision maker, and getting a foot in the door with that person is a reasonably good first step. And the great part is companies that do an excellent world-class job with being seen as thought leaders, subject matter experts, consultants, trusted advisors that have great ebooks and blogs and webinars. Many times, it doesn't matter how low seniority-wise someone is within a company. If you get their attention, they'll many times feel way more comfortable passing your content around long before they have to endorse your company. So your content marketing, your sales enablement materials can do wonders with getting you to spread out and get more coverage among the decision committee, which gets you to the decision maker. A lot of times people have this misguided view that if they can just get a foot in the door with the decision maker, everything is going to be hunky-dory awesome. The reality of what's going on in today's marketplace, however, contradicts that. Even if you can get a direct introduction to the decision maker, 9 times out of 10, the decision maker is going to send you back to the people that work for him or her, because they're not going to want to be the dictator that makes a decision by themselves. They're going to tell you, oh, go talk with Joe, go talk with Sally, go talk with Bill, go talk with Nigel. These are the folks that are going to be using your solution on a regular basis. And after you've had a chance to meet with them, assuming that you're on the same page with them, then yeah, absolutely, we'll set up a time to talk about what next steps look like. But I can't make the decision for you. They're the ones who are going to be using this on a regular basis. Go build, go tell them show them what you're working on, see if it's a fit, and see if we should look at next steps. So it's extremely important to recognize that there's a big reason why account-based marketing, ABM, account-based selling, has gotten so huge in the last 5 or 10 years when you're selling mid-market enterprise IT. It's so huge because it's so necessary. One person alone is not going to be your whole research and decision-making process when it comes to data center cooling and air quality. It takes a village. So it's critical to recognize who lives in that village and figure out a way for you to be involved in as many of those 28 touch points between stranger and customer in that village. How you have an active role in the first 83% of the buyer's journey before they're ready for sales interactions. And the better job you can do with that, the more successful you're going to be, and not only getting to the decision maker, but getting to the full committee that you're going to need to win over to be successful with your data center cooling and air quality solutions. And that advice in general goes for a much broader set of segments and business models within the data center industry, regardless of whether you're an operator, a technology company, a facilities company, like kind of in this particular case, dealing with cooling and air quality, or whether you're involved more with REIT, real estate or construction or sales and marketing in and around the data center industry. Next question is about telecommunications. We know that this is a very fragmented space, very competitive space in and around the data center industry. When we think about carrier neutral, when we think about meeting rooms, when we think about cross connects, all that stuff. So what does go-to-market look like? What does GTM look like for telecom network services companies, including carriers, OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, tower companies, and integrators, the full ecosystem that works with telecom network services companies? I think what's extremely important for building go-to-market for telecom network services is defining your business model, where you can win today, not based on the roadmap that's 6, 12, 18 months down the road, but where you're actually able to win today. When I go to your website, what kinds of clients, what kind of solutions do you talk about? What kind of case studies are there? And then work backwards from understanding who's getting the most value from the point of onboarding, who's the most successful with your customer success, with your account management team, who expands, who's never a churn risk, who's a great source of digital word of mouth to be able to power growth in the rest of your company. And then from there, we can build an effective GTM. We can build an effective go-to-market playbook strategy to be able to get more clients like your best clients. Then we'll figure out our ideal client profile, what industries they're in, where they're located, what their company sizes are. So once we've defined the company, who are the individual stakeholders within the companies that we want to reach? So it's very likely that as you start looking more carefully at carriers, OEMs, tower companies, and integrators, that you find that you need multiple buyer personas, because the point person in each of those companies that works with a company like yours may be anywhere from a little different to a lot different. We may need a different target account list. We may need a different sales rep, a different account executive to be effective in targeting each of these segments, because they need to build relationships and do their account-based selling, account-based marketing quite differently. But first, we need to understand what business we're actually in, the job to be done. This is where, for sure, you're going to want to get together your product managers, your sales reps, your account managers, and figure out where you win best. Who do you want more of? And then working backwards from there, is it just a single ideal client profile? Do you need to segment that out a little bit? Are there different stakeholders within each of those kinds of accounts that we need to build relationship and prioritize our interactions around? But first and foremost, we need to figure out what we do, why we win, why our customers are successful, and are those reasons different depending on whether they're whether they're in carriers, whether they're OEMs, tower companies, or integrators. And we have one more question we're going to tackle on today's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show. Final question for today is, how do we identify new data center business opportunities for industrial integration? Industrial integration. Okay. So when it comes to our company's core strength of doing industrial integrators, more than likely you are dealing with a lot of different subcontractors and vendors on your side to integrate this all together and be a great solution for your data center clients. But we have to recognize that a big source of our value is understanding why they come to us and why they stay with us. And in order to do that, we need to understand the business that we're actually in, the job to be done, the JTBD. This is what product managers spend a ton of time on. And the concept of the job to be done was originally developed and popularized by the late Clayton Christensen, who was a professor at Harvard Business School. So once we understand what business we are actually in and the stuff that goes on behind the curtain that we're trying to shield our data center customers from, we can set about truly understanding the why, the WHY, someone comes to us and stays with us. And working backwards from there, that will help us define the kinds of companies, the kinds of people, what kinds of problems a particular enterprise or data center operator would have that lead them to need the kind of industrial integration that our company does in the first place? And what do those problems look like? How do they manifest themselves at different stages as our customers navigate a long self-propelled buyer's journey? We live in an environment now where people are more allergic to sales interaction than they've ever been before. This is the podcasts, the videos, the review sites, asking questions of Google and Alexa and Siri and ChatGPT and Copilot. This is how people are figuring out how to solve the problems in their enterprise or data center operator business. And yes, at some point, we want them to come to the conclusion to be in the solution category of industrial integration, right? However, before they get to the point of looking at your solution category, there is almost certainly a handful of different goals they're trying to figure out, a handful of different questions they have, a bunch of different challenges and things that are stressing them out, a bunch of things that are ruining their vacation, that are keeping them away from their kids' soccer games. And the better job that we can do at understanding what those issues are and how they look throughout the entire journey, the more we can develop a holistic plan of attack, a holistic go-to-market strategy that allows us to be present the whole time, not just in the final 17% of the buyer's journey. Gartner found that 83% of the buyer's journey is now over before we get to meet a prospect, the researching, comparing options, evaluating pricing. So if we don't do this right, it's like we're being locked out of the game for the first 83% of the journey. And it's not like, this isn't just a minor problem. It's a huge problem because almost certainly they're going to learn from someone else. They're learning from a company that maybe directly or indirectly competes with you. They're learning from a media company, from a blogger, from a podcaster, from a conference. They're learning from a channel partner programs, investments in content marketing and sales enablement and thought leadership, but they're learning from someone. They're learning how to research and make these decisions. They're learning how to evaluate and compare these different options. And if you get the foot in the door, you can be the one that's seen as the subject matter expert, the trusted advisor, the teacher, the consultant. But if you don't get a foot in the door and you actually manage to meet them in that last 17%, the only thing that's going to sway them is being cheaper. You don't want to be in the cheaper business, right? That's called being commoditized. We need to get there early. So when it comes to industrial integration, we got to know the reasons why we've won with our existing customers, what gets us the case studies, what gets us the logos, what gets us the great digital word of mouth. And then we work backwards to figure out how we're going to clone those efforts, how we're going to get more customers like that, and how we can build an effective go-to-market strategy for today's marketplace that recognizes that if we by default don't do things differently, we're not going to have presence in that first 83% of the journey. So we have to be a lot smarter. Not only does your marketing team have to be prepared to go much deeper into the buyer's journey than they ever have in the past, your sales team has to be prepared to come in much earlier in the buyer's journey than they've ever been seen in the past. The salesperson of the future in and around the data center industry, and to a large degree the present, is going to look a lot more like a Big Four consultant. Their interactions that they have with prospects, with future customers, should feel a lot more like great free consulting that they'd be getting if they hired PwC or KPMG or EY or Deloitte or something like that. It should be that good. You should be able to provide so much unique insight that it doesn't feel like they're talking with a salesperson. And conversely, once they're signed on as a new customer, their interactions with your project manager, your customer success manager, your account manager should feel like the MBA or PhD version of that. It should feel so next level that it should feel like amazingly valuable free consulting, because you've seen the pattern recognition about how other enterprise data centers, how other data center operators navigate the challenges around needing industrial integration services. And by sharing those best practices and your pattern recognition and the role of a teacher, a subject matter expert, trusted advisor, thought leader, it is tremendously empowering to your company. And conversely, if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And you're always going to be subordinated to them. And you're going to have massive, massive problems around account control and retention. So when it comes to identifying new business opportunities for industrial integration, you got to play the full journey, because that's how you get great. That's 28 data points, 28 touch points between a complete stranger and a new customer. How many of those 28 touch points is our company currently involved in? Are we happy with that? If you're only there one or two, you could have the most fantastic cabana party poolside in Vegas, epic that's ever been done. The most amazing golf tournament that's ever been done. They got to play with celebrities from the PGA. But the problem is, the moment they leave the party, the moment they leave the golf tournament, do you really think they're waiting 364 days to you to repeat that event next year? No. They got problems now. Where are they going for answers to those problems? Are they going to go to you, or are they going to go to somebody that's got a competitive solution or a competitive source of information? So ultimately, if we want to be involved in identifying these new business opportunities, we have to have a way to stay with them throughout the journey. It's education, it's thought leadership, it's webinars, it's email nurturing, it's understanding who they are, what they care about, and providing a ton of value into that relationship bank account before they get to the point that they are a business opportunity. That's the key to identifying, to developing new business opportunities for industrial integration in and around the data center industry. And frankly, even if your company is not in the facility stack within the data center industry, and you do something more related to IT or construction or real estate or sales and marketing, or you're a data center operator like a colo or wholesaler or hyperscale or edge or modular or something, very, very similar contextualizing advice to be relevant, to be present, to have a really good chance of building a great relationship with your future customers from the point where they're just starting to figure out that they have a goal or a question to answer, or a challenge that's frustrating them, to the point that they become a customer, to becoming a phenomenally satisfied customer that's a great potential source of future customers. So that is the final question that we're going to be addressing on today's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A live stream show. I'm Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI. DCSMI sponsors this live stream. The Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute is all about elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market professionals in the growth of the data center industry. And I wish you great success in dramatically improving and using your go-to-market sales and marketing as a tremendous growth engine for your company in and around the data center industry. Until next time, I'm Joshua Feinberg. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe.
Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that's www.dcsmi.com.